Hello everyone, Don here with the next update on the W.A.R Corsair project. Sorry that it's taken this long to get around to making a video, but kind of got sidetracked in another project and stuff around the house being done with the nice weather for the summer. My intention was to get this thing up and running by this time, but it kind of got put on the back burner. I just, like before, still kind of burned out on it. But I did manage to do a few things on it since the last video. I did manage, to get some more epoxy and fiberglass. So you can see here I finally got some patches made up here to make the covers for this. Basically I just took some packing tape, taped over the opening, gave it the basic shape I wanted, and then just 2 layers of fiberglass cloth over that. So basically all I need to do is just pull on this tape and the whole thing will pop off, and then the idea is to trim it out. I may end up trimming this piece out a little farther back because of the way this humps. If I cut it off there, it's not going to fit right, so I may need to trim this a little more. That's why I laid the patch long, so I can trim to fit. So I got both of them done. Those were kind of the last epoxy jobs to do. And then the tail cone, I did get the other coat of I put 2 more layers, I think, cloth inside of that too. So that's all nice and stiff now. That one's going to need to be kind of cleaned up and touched up on the outside, and then probably some fresh paint on it. Once I mix up the paint to do that, I'll paint up that tail cone. But that'll be done as soon as them are fixed up. I got to glue in probably some wood backer or something in there to put a couple nut plates in there so you can put the little screws to hold those covers on, and that'll be done. Throw some paint on them. And then what I did manage to do is purchase some pre-labels for different things. And you can see all the ones missing out of there. I was able to use most of those. I bought another bigger sheet. They're just stickers. You got to cut them off and just stick them on. But out of all these damn stickers, not one of them has anything for landing gear. So, and as you can see here, I went ahead and marked everything. Got my master switch. And then the next one down, I haven't put the sticker on yet, but yeah, those are the fuel pumps. Okay, so that's master, fuel pump, arrow showing fuel pumps up and down. And this is fuel pump 1, fuel pump 2. I got my trim decal on there, showing trim down, trim up. And then the alternator switch. And then I've got a switch for nav lights, strobe lights, landing light, and taxi light, and then I'll have one more extra. So none of these are in yet, nav and all. The wires are run for the nav lights out to the wingtips and to the tail. And then the strobe lights will pretty much work. I'll have to pull an extra wire for that, but these are all kind of future. And then as you can see here, we got the throttle, and then I've got, if you can read that, it says throttle push open, I believe. And then I think I mentioned in my last video, I went ahead and put in took the flap switch off of the joystick and added it there. So I was able to purchase a switch for that, and that's a momentary up, momentary down, spring loaded and center off, and that's marked. So the FAA is kind of picky on that stuff. And up here in the corner you can see I got cabin air, which is that vent down there. And then over here I got the same thing for heat, cabin air hot, and that was cabin air cold. And then as you can see up there, I got the ignition switch, I got the off, on, start, engage, starter, engage. That's why I say I need some stuff for the landing gear switches to mark that. There's a little decal I have for the magnetic correction to put on there. So the rest of this stuff doesn't really need any marking. I still have to come in and do the same thing for all the circuit breakers. I got to go through and figure out which breaker went to what circuit and label them. And I used to have the stickers for putting in here too, but I can't seem to locate them. They might be in the paperwork in the house, but this is just the elevator trim up and down. Then the push to talk is on the front, and the left to right, which would be aileron roll, is not used. But eventually I may put in a simple autopilot, and those will get used. It'll just be a servo motor. And then as you can see here, I got the big mandatory experimental sticker. So that's what's required. And then I also have a data plate that'll have to go on. Usually it goes on the tail. but I've got that. I just have to fill it out. Again, everything up here is done. I just need to want to touch up some paint, so once I get the paint out for that, I'll come in and touch all this stuff up. But that's all done. Just put the fuel tank back on. This is pretty much done here. I got one clamp over there to tie down and to tape down that insulation mat on the bottom, and that'll be pretty much it. And then I can go ahead and get the prop on there. But what I've been doing here for the last couple weeks, the biggest thing is right here, this canopy. So what I did is I went ahead and started working on that last weekend, and this is what I came up with. This is my canopy project here. As you can see, look at that thing. Isn't that just beautiful? Absolute work of art. Down here, look at that. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Down there. Look at this thing. Doesn't that look great? Whole kit inside. Yeah, it's a piece of shit. It's not going to be used. That was my first attempt. It took me, I think it was like 7 or 8 tries just to get that. And then what eventually happened was it ended up tearing on my boards on there, trying to pull this over top of that. I tried several different ways. Luckily you can just keep reheating this stuff, and once you heat it, it kind of goes back to flat again. You pull it out and you should try stretching it again. I tried multiple times to stretch it over the form. Just couldn't do it by hand. The thing is like a rubber band. You pull it on there, and then if you let up on it, it just springs right back. And it's really tough. I couldn't never pull it hard enough to get this to touch the form, front or back. And then finally, on like the 7th or 8th try, it just tore. You know, from the heating cycles, heating up. I mean, it was always warm, but you only have a window of 15 or 20 seconds before this thing starts getting hard, and it will not stretch anymore. And it's amazing how much, this is only 1/8 inch thick, how much pressure it takes to pull that over the form. I mean, it really was looking good. I mean, it was fitting good, but it never pulled tight here or here. And then it finally failed from all the cycles of heating. You can see where it just literally busted, stripped right off. So that's junk. But today I've came about a different approach, and as you notice here, my oven is laying on its back. And what I did is I made a structure and put inside, and now I take the form, flip it over, and I push it down in, keep the plexiglass in the heat the whole time while I'm trying to form it. So I've got that video all made up, and I'm going to go ahead and tack it on to the end of this thing. So that'll be my basic update. One of the side things I've been doing is, you notice that little bench there. If anybody has any idea what that is, that's going to be a cylinder head flow bench for testing cylinder heads. All the electronics and everything's in there, and now I'm just working on the motor fan assembly for it. But I spent on about 2 months tinkering with that thing, getting that ready. So that's going to be for this project here. As you can see, I got a nice tubular K member in there and a nice transmission cross piece. But I haven't worked on this. I just bought some parts and just tacked them on there. But I was spending a lot of time on that. There's a $600 worth of electronic components in there to make the thing accurate as can be. But I'm going to be using that to port my cylinder heads and intake manifold. I need to get the intake manifold to flow enough for the cylinder heads I got. But that's another video, another project when I get back on the Mustang. But right now I'm going to go ahead and get the canopy finished up. Like I said, I do have one made. I'm not going to show it to you right now. I'm going to let you watch the rest of this video, and you can see what I had to go through to make it. But this here was a royal pain in the butt. But I mean, it was looking really good. I mean, it was filling out nicely. But it's junk, so this is going to be thrown away. And I still have enough plastic left to do one more try, but the second one, it did turn out. It is a usable piece, and you're going to see that next. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here because the rest of this video is going to be a little long-winded. And as always, appreciate you taking time to watch these videos, and stay tuned, the rest is coming. Okay everyone, as you can see, I'm going to try a different approach here on making the canopy for the airplane. There's my mold pattern wrapped in the flannel fabric. And what I've got here, as you can see, my oven is laying on its back. The door's open. And what I did is I built a frame structure to put in the oven. Just some 2x4s and some 2x6s for legs. There's a leg on each end. As you can see, one there. There'll be one here and then one on each side, because you're going to be pushing down in the center of this. You can see that there's a piece of plexiglass sitting in here right now. And it's got a sag in it, of course. You can see it right there. And the idea is, once this starts heating up, I've got these strips of board here. You can see this. That's the width of the canopy from this side to the other side. And the idea is, once this heats up and gets soft, it's going to become very flexible. So then I'll grab these boards and I'll slide them over till they line up here and over here. And then this side will slide over here. And what that'll do is that'll make a nice U-shaped piece of plexiglass. And then once I slide them over, I'm going to take that piece of plywood, OSB, and cover this side. And I have a second piece over here, which is going to cover this side, because once this is slid open, there's going to be big openings on each end. So the idea is get this up to whatever temperature it takes to make this thing flexible so it'll sink down in place. Put the plywood on there, and then close the door, and then bring it up to my 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when I open the door, I'm not going to have these big gaping holes here for all the heat to escape, because I want the heat to stay in the oven on this plexiglass. So then I'll take this, flip it upside down, bring it over, and I'll push it down in by hand. And then, as you can see, these boards are made, they overhang so it catches on the edge here and it won't fall down inside. And then with the boards over here, it'll help hold the heat in while I try and force this down. And depending on how it goes, I may have to kind of force it, stop, take it out, let it heat up some more. Depends on how soft it actually gets. My first attempt of stretching one of these, I was trying to do this particular method with the same clamp boards on each end, and I was trying to stretch it over the mold. I was trying to get it to come over top this way, but the problem is when you're pulling down on it really hard and you ease up on it, it springs back like a rubber band. It won't hold. And by the time you get it out of the oven, it was hanging in the oven this way. You take it out, take it over there, and try to stretch it down over it. It cools fairly quick. I mean, you only have 15-20 seconds to work on this thing before it starts setting up. So I'm going to go ahead and close this thing up, turn the power on, and I've got it set, and I can turn it on right now, as you can see. But this is in Celsius. I've got it turned way down, right there, 40 degrees. Right now it's only at 22 degrees Celsius. I got to get it up to about 182 degrees Celsius, which will give me 350 degrees in the cabinet. So I'm going to go ahead and close this thing up. Let that, what it does once it reaches that 40 degrees, I'll wait a minute and then I'll bump it up to 50 degrees. And then when it gets 50, and so forth until I get it up to full temp. The idea is, if I turn it on to full temp, those things will glow cherry red, and it'll put too much heat down here, and it can cause the plexi to blister. So I just bring it up nice and slow, and then give it time to heat and get soft, and then we'll try the stretch method. I'll try and get that on video for you as we go along. Alright, so I'll be back when it's ready to go. Alright, the temperature is right about 200 degrees now, and I took a peek in there a couple minutes ago and it was already nice and saggy, so I'm going to see if I can go ahead and slide these pieces in. Guess I didn't think ahead and get my gloves. Alright, open this door up and then I'll slide those in and put the pieces of plywood down. Oh yeah, she's drooped down in there very nice, and it's actually right there, it's already slid on its own. Put that nice and square there. Well, this end is not as soft as this end, I can tell you that right now. Alright, now button these up down here. That'll help hold the heat down when I go to do the forming process. Help keep from losing all the heat, that is, when I open the door. See, it's down about 5 degrees just doing that. Alright, we'll go ahead and let that heat up and get her up to 350, and we'll check it out and see what it looks like and I'll be back when it's ready. Stay tuned. Alright folks, I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a try. As you can see, the thing is smoking. I think that particle board is, the glue in it must be smoking. Regular, the 2x4s and 6, the heat doesn't seem to bother it that much, but the OSB must be a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm up to about 300 degrees on the temperature. The stuff is soft enough, but it'd be about nice if it was more like 350. So probably going to see a bunch of smoke come out of here. I already turned the heat off. I'm going to go ahead and give it a try, see what happens. I already took one chunk of the wood out. Yeah, I can see the heat has gotten to the parts over on one side, but the stuff is nice and soft. Let's see what happens. Hard part is getting the very front and back to pull tight. Not sure what it's doing. I'd say there's a lot of spring back on this thing. It could be a while to cure or set back up, I guess. I can't see underneath to see what's going on. Yeah, it's not tight. It's not tight at all. Pull this out real quick. Problem is trying to get it to pull tight on the front and back. Go ahead and heat her up some more. Yeah, my wood on this corner is getting hot from the heating elements directly under it. Alright, let me take a break and warm her up a little more. Alright everyone, I've managed to get it finally up to 350 degrees. That's my target temp. It's been sitting there for a few minutes. I ended up taking out the OSB because that was the material that was burning. I'm starting to see a little smoke now. That's probably the 2x4 structure inside, 2x6 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off the heat and give her one more try. Alright, that's off. Yeah, I had little strips of OSB down the sides, and it was actually burning. It had embers. This will be the first time I've had it up to the full 350 degrees. I'll grab some weights, try and add some weight to this thing. These are all 5 pounds, that's 20 pounds worth of extra weight. So you can see the plexiglass is starting to pull between the woods back here. Down in here it's pulling. The problem is getting the plexiglass tight enough against the low spots on the front and back of the canopy. If you leave this stuff in past 350 degrees, it'll start blistering. You can see a couple blisters on the very edge there, the scrap side. That actually is looking pretty good. And the front side's a little. Like I said, this is my second attempt at doing this. It's going to take a while for this thing to cool down. And it's going to spring back if I try to lift up on it. I'll take the weight off. Fan down. Some cooler air blowing over here. I think it's pretty close. I've got, okay, this corner is definitely torn loose. I've got enough material to do one more try once I ruin this piece, if I ruin it. Whether this thing works or not, I'll probably go ahead and post a video so you guys get an idea where I'm at with this build. This has been a thing here for the last couple of weeks, so it doesn't take much for this stuff to solidify. That back is clear shine, but again, this pattern is 2 inches longer, about 1 inch in the front, 1 inch in the back, and the sides are between 3 and 4 inches longer, so this height, if you can see it, a lot of this gets cut off. I made it extra long. Here, it's setting up now. What I'll do is I'll let this set a while and get nice and hard. And if it looks good, front's a little shy. Most of that front gets cut off. And then I got to come back in on about 2 inches just to cut that front section. The pattern is 1 inch long, front and rear dimensions, but it's also the plexiglass is 2 inches bigger than the form. So I'm about 3 inches longer than it needs to be. I don't know if you can see it, but where this ply is on the front and back, that's all the bigger than it is. The back is close, but it's still not. I mean, it may still have the basic shape I'm looking for. And once I trim it down, it may fit alright. I can always make more. This plexiglass is, I can pay about $85 a sheet for it. Alright, looks like she's holding. But I knew it was going to be a learning curve. Wood, the OSB, like I said, it was burning. Let me go ahead and pull this off the mount so you get an idea what I'm looking at. So that back edge, the canopy's got to follow that low spot right there, and the same thing in the front. So it's actually looking pretty good. You might be lucky enough to have it. If I have to, the problem was, you can see here, see where the 2x4s get pretty burnt. The heating element is right there. Same on that side. So if I have to, I can make this out of aluminum or steel if I have to do this all again. My first attempt at this, I was able to do 7 or 8 attempts before the plexiglass finally tore out on me. And right here, you can see in there, see how it's broken already? There's a shard of plexiglass right there where it pulled through the screw. And that's what happened with the last one, is it literally just tore right across there from, like I said, 7 or 8 tries. So it was a learning curve. But I think I might have a usable part. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and let this cool down, pull it out, and take another look at it. Alright, I'll be back. Okay everybody, things had a little time to cool off now. It's probably still, it's pretty much cool. It's nice and solidified. Now you can see the basic profile of the thing. It actually was to the form. Now you can see I've set the frame inside, and look at the distance from the frame, top of the rear frame to here. That has to come clear up there. That's like 8 inches. And then the front, this is the front, that's the rear. Let's see if we can, kind of tough to see this thing. But it's not bad. I can see some very faint, what they call mark off inside from the fabric because of the squeezing and stretching part of it. You can see the kind of the fold wrinkle there. That was from the edge of the form. Again, when this frame's up in there, that frame goes all the way up inside. Basically that front hoop is right at this point, right about in here. This will get cut off all the way down through here following that frame. The same way with the back. The back actually does come back into here a little bit, and then again it'll cut off. So that's the finished length of the framework, so just imagine that tucked up in there. Now, before I can do that, right there, as you can see where it blowed out from stretching, it tore. I mean, you got to clamp the hell out of this thing. It probably needs about twice that many screws, but I figured I'd give that a try. But I think I got a usable part here, folks. Here's the edge of the line, but it still gets cut off clear up here. I mean, it's nowhere near. It's this frame here. It only hangs down about, this is 1.5 inches, and it only hangs down about that much from the frame. So there's a lot of material that's coming off of this thing, and plus it did stretch as I formed it. So, but overall, I think it turned out well. It's good enough to cut up as long as I don't break it when I attach it to the framework. Put it in. I'll need to clean that frame up, throw some fresh paint on it, and then because I had to cut it at one time and re-weld it to make it fit the foam work after I was done foaming the plane, so it'd be a snugger fit, because the top of this has to kind of sit right flush on the back end of the, basically the, I call it the turtle deck of the rear of the plane. So there'll be a piece of foam or something in here, so when it's pulled forward, and it'll kind of seal, try to make it airtight. It'll be screwed to this frame, and then the front face of this frame will all be filled with epoxy and putty to make it smooth, and then there'll be a foam rubber seal on there to seal against the windshield so you don't get any whistling noises. So the next thing is I'm going to give this a day or two to set up good, and then I'll have to run it through an annealing cycle, because right now this thing is kind of like glass in this phase. If you was to take that before it was stretched, it actually has some flexibility to it, but now it doesn't have that flexibility. If you try to bend it, it'll literally just snap. So you have to run it through another heat cycle to anneal it, and it only has to go, I want to say it's somewhere around 150 degrees, but you got to go up to that 150 degrees very slowly over a period of an hour or so, maybe more. I haven't looked at the specs lately. But then you have to cool it down every so many degrees per hour over like 5-6 hour period. So you're talking half a day to anneal that. And then once it's annealed, then you can drill it, and it'll basically should get kind of back to the original flexibility of the plexiglass before it was heated. Because right now it's under a lot of stress. The annealing doesn't get it hot enough to deform. It won't shrink or deform. It's a very slow rise in heat to get the structures of the plastic to settle in and line up better and such. But it's an annealing thing. It's the same thing you do for steel or anything else. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's update. Sorry it's taken this long to do it, but like I said earlier, I've had other things I've done. This portion of the video will be tacked on to my update for this week. I'll get that uploaded tonight so you guys have something to see. Alright, so like always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns, and I'll answer them as they come through. Again, sorry for the long delay, but things happen, and you know. Alright, so until the next one, I'm not sure when that'll be, but I'll get this thing annealed and cut and fitted, and then I'll do a follow-up on when it's finished. Alright, again, thanks for watching, everybody. This is Dino Don out.